Hi, I want to demonstrate a knot that I use to connect shooting line to monofilament line. And what I mean by that is in Michigan here, when we're fishing the salmon run or the steelhead run, we rig a fly rod up with shooting line on the reel instead of, let's say, a floating or sinking fly line. And the shooting line gets attached to monofilament, and then there's a sliding weight system on it. So it's just basically a simple forward cast stroke to shoot the line out. And what you're trying to do is get your flies to bounce near the bottom in the deep holes, which would be kind of difficult to do with a floating line. So what I'm going to do is demonstrate a knot that I use to connect shooting line to monofilament. And when I say shooting line, here's a typical shooting line. This is frog hair shooting line. This happens to be 40-pound test. Rio makes the slick shooter shooting line. This is 25-pound test. And this is the line weight that I would recommend. Don't go any lighter. We can encounter salmon that are approaching up to 30 pounds. So you got to have some strength there. And Amnesia makes a good shooting line. There's some different colors that they come in. But again, what I'm talking about is connecting the shooting line to monofilament. So here's the Maxima 12-pound test. But what I want to explain why I want to use this other knot. This is called an Albright knot, which is a knot that does work. The problem I have with it is you see that this happens to be Amnesia, the bright orange shooting line. I left the tag ends intact so you can see where they are before you cut them off. The tag end of the shooting line is coming out the back of the knot. But if you look, the tag end of the 12-pound monofilament comes right out of the front of the knot. So the only thing protecting it is the single loop of shooting line right in front of it, nothing else. So as soon as this knot gets disturbed or disrupted, or let's say abraded somehow, they don't usually break, they come apart. So struggled with that for a while, and I'm going to show you a knot that I've switched to. It's essentially a nail knot where you tie the monofilament to the shooting line with a nail knot, but the problem is a typical nail knot would slide right off the end of this smooth shooting line. It's intended to dig into the PVC of, let's say, a floating or sinking fly line. So it bites into that, but there's nothing to bite into here. So here's the way I am able to do a nail knot on shooting line. I put a small single overhand loop in the shooting line. Don't tighten it down yet. Leave about a 4 or 5 inch tag. Then get a hold of the 12-pound monofilament. Now ultimately, once this knot is completed, I'm going to have about 9 to 12 feet of this 12-pound monofilament line attached to the shooting line. So after you pass it through that knot, snug down the knot in your shooting line. You've got the 12-pound captured inside of that. What you want to see is the short end of the shooting line or tag end, and the tag end of the monofilament should come out in this direction. Now what I do, a nail knot, they used to literally lay a nail in here, wrap the line around it, shoot the line between the nail knot and the rest of the wraps. It's kind of hard to do with a nail. So somebody came along and said, let's use a tube. So what I use is the needle valve or the inflation needle that you would use for a basketball or a football. So these are readily available. So what I'm going to do is lay the end of that tube just behind the knot in the shooting line and get a hold of the tag end of the monofilament. And now what I'm going to do is wrap it around there about 6 times. So there's 3, 4, 5, 6. Now what I need to do is pass the tag end of the monofilament into the tube and come out the back. But the first thing you want to do is get a hold of the monofilament on this end and pull that very first loop snug so all 6 wraps are all lined up around the tube and the shooting line. So now we're going to take the short end or the tag end of the monofilament, run it through the tube so it comes out the back. Okay, I'm going to push that through. Now it's coming out the back. I'm going to pull it tight. Now switch hands. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to just pull the needle out, but keep everything held rigid. What you can do now is get a hold of the short end of the monofilament, snug it down, but you'll notice I need those loops of monofilament to come up right behind the overhand knot in the shooting line. So the way you do that is transfer it back, take both ends of the shooting line and just lightly pull so that you can feel the nail knot of the monofilament is now butted up tight against there. Now go ahead and snug down the monofilament, push it up tight, and there's your knot. So again, what you're seeing is a nail knot that's tied right behind the single overhand knot in the shooting line. So that's what's keeping it attached. So now you can go ahead, come in with your clipper, cut your tag ends off, and you can cut them up close because, again, the tag ends are coming out of the back of the knot. Here's the front end of the knot. And again, this would also have an application probably in saltwater knots where you're bonding or joining heavier monofilament to lighter monofilament. Again, it's going to work just fine. So go ahead and give that a try.